Gladiator is probably one of my favourite frontliners in Baldur's Gate 3. It's incredibly fun. So we're going to go over it. We're going to level by level, comment through all the items you need, and we're going to start with the Elementalist modded class. So this give you elemental sparks, and they're kind of like sorcery points, but different. It's kind of hard to explain. It's better in action. We do gain intelligence saving throws, constitution saving throws, and proficiencies in nearly everything pretty much. Medium, heavy, light armor, shields, glaives, halberds, pikes, spears, martial, and simple weapons. And we're going to take the Elemental Gladiator. So this will allow you to bind your weapon, meaning you cannot drop it or throw it, and if you aren't proficient with it, you will become proficient with it. The thing is, it doesn't say it here, but it will use your intelligence modifier for attacks, as this is your spellcasting ability. We also get a martial fighting style, and because I'm using the two-handed weapon Sword of Chaos, we are going to go great weapon fighting, which means when you roll a 1 or 2 on a damage die for an attack with two-handed melee weapons, that die is re-rolled once. If you want to use Sword and Board, you can. I would take either defense to get that +1 armor to bonus, or protection, so you give disadvantage on attacks to allies within 1.5 meters of you. You also gain an elemental attunement. Now there's so many different options here. What this does is it means you'll ignore resistances to the damage you choose with attacks, and when we deal that type of damage, we cannot roll a 1. So, for example, I'm using the Sword of Chaos, so for this I am going to take necrotic damage, as the Sword of Chaos uses necrosis. So we're going to ignore the necrotic damage, and if we deal necrotic damage, we cannot do a 1. But also if you want to do a radiant build, do a radiant build. If you want to do a cold build, do a cold build, and pick and choose like that. If you're a DT, pick whatever you feel like. And then when it comes to your ability points, we're going to have 10 strength, we're going to have 16 dexterity to help with our initiative, we're going to have 14 constitution, 16 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and 8 charisma. For your proficiencies, take whatever you feel like. Okay, level 2 will bring you more elemental sparks, so we gain another one. And we get Spark Step, meaning we can spend one to gain an instant 3 meter boost to our movement speed. And then you get a Gladiator's Heart. So there's so many options here, but essentially they all do the same thing. You become resistant to the damage type you choose, and do a permanent 3 damage of that type. So for example, Caustic Heart will do acid, we have cold, fire, we have lightning, thunder, radiant, necrotic, and poison. So again, base this on your the build you're doing and the theme you're doing. If you're doing an ice build, go with the Frozen Heart, or maybe even like the lightning damage, for example. Now I am doing necrotic, but because we already have necrotic on our sword, I'm going to go with venomous to get that poison damage. Level 3 will bring you another elemental spark, an elemental weapon, meaning we can give ourselves a +1 bonus to attack rolls and deal an additional 1d4 of the damage of our choice. Now at this point we also gain explosive strikes. So again, much like before, they will do the same thing, just changing the damage type. And with this, after you use the explosive strike, you will cause an explosion that deals elemental damage to enemies in a 4 meter radius around the initial target. So for this one, I am going to be sticking with my theme, taking poison and necrotic. But again, you might be doing a fire build and radiant, so fire radiant. Pick and choose as you need be. Level 4 brings you your first feat. We also gain 1 more elemental spark. And now you get to pick some gladiator strikes. So the first 2 I'm picking is the gladiatorial strike. So you stand your ground and empower your weapon with cataclysmic strikes. You half your movement speed, but every element you deal on your next attack deals an additional 1d4. So essentially you can debuff yourself with your movement to buff your damage. It's really, really good, and this works great if you are frontlining and you've pulled aggro with melee people, or if you've got a boss fight, something like that. The other thing we are going to take is Venomous Slash. So lash out your target with a venomous blade, surrounding the target in a noxious cloud that possibly poisons those within. Now we get a new feat, and for this one, we are going to take our intelligence up to 18. Elementalist level 5 brings you Flickering Embers. So now all your sparks will recharge after a long or short rest. We also gain an extra attack, so if we make an attack with our main action, we can follow up with an extra attack. And we get Heat of Battle. So while this is toggled on, we will do an extra 1 to 6 damage with our melee attacks, but we do suffer a -2 accuracy, and we reduce our armor class by 2. Now we get to pick 2 more strikes, and for this one, the first one we're going to take is Flash Fire. So you rush forward, dealing 2 to 16 thunder and 2 to 16 fire damage, possibly creating a flaming flash that blasts foes and inflicts bleeding. The other thing we're going to pair this with is Searing Sting. So stab your weapon into the enemy with Searing Ferocity. You deal 1 to 4 fire damage and possibly burn them. Level 6, we now get 1 more spark, We also get honing sparks, so we can hone the edge of our blade, leading to more criticals and more damage on successful critical hits. We also have an improved elemental weapon, so instead of dealing 1d8 extra damage, it's now 1d10. For a strike here, we're going to take the Strike of Acid, so we'll deal an additional 1d4 acid damage, and create a pool of acid, reducing the enemy's armor class by 2. Level 7 will bring you another elemental spark, and unending elements. So after making the main attack, make a secondary elemental attack of your chosen element. This converts all main weapon damage to the desired damage type. And we get to pick another heart, so for this one we will take Mizamic Heart. And then we get to level 8, again, one more elemental spark. We also gain an aspect of battle. So there's aspect of force, so this will do 1 to 6 force damage and possibly inflict maim, which will reduce movement speed to 0. There's aspect of acid, so 1 to 6 acid damage, and possibly reduce the target's AC by 2. This is my choice. Aspect of thunder, so 1 to 6 thunder damage, and possibly inflict reverberation. And aspect of mind, psychic damage and mental fatigue. We get another feat, so we're going to take our intelligence up to 20 and max it out. And then we get to level 9, and this is where things get really cool. We get elemental smites. So smite your foe with the power of your elemental attacks. You deal your normal weapon damage and add elemental damage on top to strike down your foes. Level 10 brings you Master Elemental Weapon. So imbue a weapon with the essence of your elemental mastery. It receives a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls, and deals an additional 2d6 plus 3 of your chosen element, which is crazy. Level 11 empowers your elemental smite, so it just makes them more powerful, basically. We also get an immunity piercing, so we're going to take immunity piercing to necrotic because of our sword. Again, pick and choose this based on the theme you're going for. And then finally, Elementalist level 12 brings Cataclysmic Cleave. Swing your weapon in a large arc up to 4 enemies at once. This attack empowers your elemental abilities, granting you Cataclysmic Strike. And any elemental damage you deal is increased by 1d4 afterwards. We get a final feat, and there's 2 options here, either Savage Attacker, so you reroll your damage dice and take the highest amount, or Alert for the +5 bonus to initiative. That's my choice. Okay, so let's go over our items, and we're going to start with Savrok's Horned Helmet. So we get to decrease our critical roll number by 1, which works really well with our class ability. We can't be frightened, Constitution saving throws +1, and we gain Dark Vision up to 3 meters or 15 if we already have it. We're going to take the Flesh Melter Cloaks. Whenever your creature deals damage, melee damage to you I should say, they take 1 to 4 acid damage. Again, you can change your cloak based on the theme you're going for. So if you're going for the fire build, obviously take the cloak that causes burning when you're hitting melee. We're going to take the Boots of Genial Striding, so we're unimpeded by difficult terrain. I like using the Reaper's Embrace for this. You reduce all incoming damage by 2. When we activate Reaper's Rigidity, we can't be moved by any spell or action, and we gain Howl of the Dead. We're also going to take the Helldust Gloves, so +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls, but more importantly, our weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 6 fire damage. Because we are going to be frontlining, we can take the Ring of Regeneration, so we regenerate 1 to 4 hit points at the start of our turn. The Killer Sweetheart, so if we kill a creature, our next attack roll will be a guaranteed critical hit. And the Surge and Subjugation Amulet, because again, we have more chance of doing criticals. If we land a critical now, we can choose to paralyze the target for 2 turns. And round it all off with the Sword of Chaos, like I said. On a hit, we regain 1 to 6 hit points, and it has a +2 weapon enchantment. So that's the build, let's go check it out. Okay, so we've just left camp. The first thing you're going to want to make sure you do is bind your weapon. And there you go. And after that, essentially we just have our abilities on here. So let's go find the combat. Okay, as you can see, we are in the combat and we're actually top of the turn order. So the first thing we're going to do is turn on Heat of the Battle. So we are going to take less accuracy and reduce our AC by 2. But that's why we've got the ring, so we can heal up. And from this, as you can see, we have so many options for stuff. So we're going to start with an Empowered Elemental Strike. And we will do Necrotic on good old Skeeve here. And there you go, you can see we pumped out the damage. There's acid, there's bone chill, everything. Now because we did that, that does actually count as a ability. And what you'll see here, it did cost 6 elemental strikes, so bear that in mind. But the good thing is now we can, for example, swing forth our blade here and do a higher amount of necrotic damage. And we've instantly killed an enemy. What we can also do is we can then follow up with something like a Unending Elements, and we'll pick Necrotic again, and we'll target Sparks here. We're not going to do Executioner yet. And there you go, within one round we've killed 2 enemies. And it means we can start, if we wanted to, pulling aggro on the big brute. Now you see the enemy took a bunch of damage for attacking us, kind of stuck off camera, but it happened. Now as you can see we healed up for 3 hit points, and we're under half our health. But that's fine, because I want to show you how easy you can build up your health pool. So we're going to land our Executioner for that guaranteed critical hit, and then we're going to paralyse the target. So now they're paralysed for 2 turns, can't really do anything. So ideally this is where you could focus on another enemy, or you could paralyse the big brute and just wear them down. But for us, obviously we can focus on some more of our stuff. And in this case, let's go with Honing Sparks. And there you go, instant critical, and look at the damage we did. Meaning we can also start to chase down the enemies. We can also do a Spark Step to gain more movement speed if need be. So you see we gain 3 hit points, and we're just going to do basic attacks now. So we gain 1, and we hit for plus 5 health. We can go again, and there you go, we gained another 3. So overall, and we have a Cleric as well I should say. So overall it was so easy to maintain like protection on yourself and get those hit points back. And what's awesome is that we can still come in here if we need to with an Unending Elements. We've got our Pommel Strikes, all that sort of stuff. And again, we've got all these other abilities we can do. So let's do Master Elemental Weapon, and let's put our Necrotic damage on it. And there you go. Now unfortunately we can't follow up with a main attack, but we can do our Pommel Strike. And you see even with a Pommel Strike we're still doing incredible damage, and we healed up for 4 hit points again. As you can see we are now in combat with 2 of them, so it's time for us to do some of our explosive strikes. So let's do our Explosive Necrotic. We'll target this enemy. And there you go, you see we landed a big critical, and we've smacked both of them. And because that counts as a main strike, you could follow up with another one if you have the sparks available. You could do Strike of Acid. We've got our Cataclysmic Cleave, so let's do that and we'll target both. Like this. And there you go, once again, another critical hit. And the enemy is stuck with 4 health. And that's the Elemental Gladiator. An amazing frontliner with empowered strikes. And also if you want to take less damage but deal less damage, you can always turn off Heat of the Battle. But overall, it's just so much fun. Probably one of my favourite modded subclasses out of everything. Elemental Synergist is a really cool half-caster mod for the Elementalist. So we're going to dip into it, and we are going to make everything sort of a half-caster frontliner. Let me go through the build and explain. So we're going to start with the Elementalist at level 1, and we're going to go level by level, combat tutorial, and all the items. So of course, Elementalist level 1 brings you Elemental Sparks. These are kind of like your Sorcerer points, but for the Elementalist. They're really cool, I'll show you them. We gain Intelligence saving throw proficiencies, and Constitution saving throw proficiencies. And if we come to this side over here, you will see proficiencies with medium and light armor, shields, glaives, halberds, pike spears, simple and martial weapons. And of course, the Elemental Synergist. Now this means we can have bind weapon, which means we don't need strength or dex, depending on your weapon. You bind it and it will use your intelligence, as that's our spell casting modifier. We'll scan a chaotic orb of our choice. So let's go over our cantrips, and we're going to take Bone Chill, we're going to take Shocking Grasp, and we're going to take Firebolt. 3 different kinds of damage. We've got 2 ranged, 2 melee. And then we get to our first level spells, and we're going to take Magic Missile, as this is the best from the start of the game to the end of the game. It's just incredible. We're going to take Shield, nice reactive protective spell for us. And we're going to take Hellish Rebuke, a nice reactionary based fire damage dealer. Now when it comes to your martial fighting style, I will personally be taking defense for this one, just to boost our AC as high as possible. And then we get a Elemental Attunement. Now this means that spells and attacks we do ignore resistances. So for me, I have picked Fire personally. There is a reason for this, based on our equipment we're using, but if you fancy doing a Lightning build or a Thunder build, I can show you some different options. For your deity, pick whatever. And then we get to our ability points, and for this we are going to have 8 strength. We're going to have 16 dexterity to help with our initiative, as well as our AC. 14 constitution, 16 intelligence, as this is our spell casting modifier. 10 wisdom, and 10 charisma. For your proficiencies, take what you feel like. And that brings us to Elementalist level 2. Again, we get one more Elemental Spark. We also gain Insightful Cantrips. So cantrips do additional damage equal to your Intelligence modifier. We gain Potent Cantrip, so your cantrips become hard to evade. When a creature succeeds its saving throw against one of your cantrips, it still takes half damage. And Spark Step, which means we can use an Elemental Spark to boost our movement speed by 3 meters. We gain one more cantrip, so for this one we are going to take a Ray of Frost. And then we get some more spells to choose from. So I would personally take Thunderwave, because this is a great spell to push people off of beams, ledges, all that sort of fun stuff. And we'll take Create or Destroy Water. Elementalist level 3 brings you another Elemental Spark Charge. We have now unlocked level 2 spell slots as well. So we gain an Elemental Infusion. So when we do elemental damage using a spell or cantrip, that element will now infuse our weapon, dealing an additional 1d4 damage. We gain synergistic cantrips, or synergetic cantrips I should say. So when you deal damage with a cantrip, we gain Arcane Synergy for 2 turns, and Spark Infusion. Essentially we can infuse our weapon with an element. Now for spells, we are going to take Misty Step, and we're also going to take Scorching Ray. Scorching Ray, nice little fire dealing spell, and again if you pick the resistance to fire at the start, it's going to deal with even more damage. And Misty Step, so we can get around the battlefield. Elementalist level 4 brings you a new feat. So for this one, before that, we're going to get spells, and we're going to take Mouth's Acid Arrow for some acid damage, as well as delayed damage. And we'll take Hold Person, because Hold Person is great for holding enemies still, and if they are held, then if you hit them with a melee attack, it is a guaranteed critical hit. And what's really good is with our AC being so high, it's kind of hard for enemies to hit us and break that concentration. Now for your feat, we are going to boost our intelligence all the way up to 18. Elementalist level 5 brings Flickering Embers. So all our elemental sparks will now replenish on a short rest as well as a long rest. We also get Warcaster Strike, meaning if we do a spell or cantrip, we can follow up with a strike with our main weapon. And Eldritch Strike. So when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, it has disadvantage on its saving throw against a spell you cast before the end of your next turn. Now we get more spells at this point, so for this one, let's take Flaming Sphere, and we'll also take Ice Knife. Elementalist level 6 brings you one more Elemental Spark Charge. We also have Improved Elemental Infusion, so when we deal elemental damage using a spell or cantrip and it infuses our weapon, until the end of our next turn, we do an additional 2d6 damage of that type with a +1 bonus to attack rolls. We also get Daredevil Proximity, which means ranged spell attacks are made as melee spell attacks when we're adjacent to a hostile creature, and Close Quarters Spellcasting. Now we've unlocked a bunch of new spells, so we're going to start with Fireball, and we're going to take Spirit Guardians. Probably my 2 favourite level 3 spells. Maybe they're just behind Hunger of Hadar, because I do think this is easily one of the top 10 spells in the game. Now Elementalist level 7 will bring you another Spark Charge, as well as Adroit Spellcasting. So cantrips targeting foes and allies can target an additional creature. The same target can be chosen twice, and this effect can be used once per battle. Now we gain more spells, so we are going to come in here, and we're going to take the Hunger of Hadar, like I said before. Basically this is a big old cloud of darkness, but enemies that start their turn in it will take between 2 to 12 cold damage, and if they end their turn in it, it's 2 to 12 acid damage, and the whole area is difficult terrain. It's phenomenal. This is such a game changer, especially in like a tight area like Moonrise Towers. I placed this and Edvar's Black Tentacles down with 2 different spellcasters, and the enemies were just suffocating. And then to pair with our Create or Destroy Water, we are going to take Cool Lightning. Elementalist level 8 brings another Elemental Spark, but we now have Arcane Buckler. You gain 12 temporary hit points after casting a spell while in melee, which is phenomenal. That really adds to like the tanking abilities of this specialist, which is why the Elemental Synergist is a really cool half-caster in my opinion. Now we do have more spells to choose from at this point, so we're going to start with Wounding Ray. So deal 5 to 14 necrotic damage to your enemies and leave a festering wound, dealing damage over time. And then we're also going to take Lightning Bolt, again so we can pair lightning with Create or Destroy Water. Now it comes to a new feat, so ability improvement, and we're going to bump intelligence up to 20. Elementalist level 9 brings you Elemental Sparks again, so we gain one more charge. And now we get some empowered cantrips, and these are awesome. So the 3 I'm going to take is Hellfire Orb. Shoot a bright orb of hellfire from your fingertips that engulfs an area in flame. A pool of deadly hellfire is left in the aftermath. This is a bonus action as well. These are all bonus action spells, and they're phenomenal. Now we're going to pair this with Radiant Sunstrike. Slam your foes with a Radiant Strike, dealing 4 to 40 radiant damage. On hit, light erupts around you in a 3 meter area. Enemies in the light must succeed a Constitution saving throw or be blinded. And then we're also going to take Venomous Strike. Slam the target with a Fistful of Venom. On hit, surround the target in a noxious cloud that possibly poisons those within it. And it also inflicts a Festering Wound. Elementalist level 10 will give you another 2 Elemental Spark charges this time. And Master Elemental Infusion. So this time we gain a 2d6 plus 4 infusion of damage. We get more spells at this point, so we're going to take the Guardian of Faith, really good in boss fights or when there's lots of minions, place it on like a staircase or something. Any enemies that end their turn within it will take damage from the Guardian. However, if it deals 20 damage, it takes 20 damage. So it can die very quickly, but it is also a very nice damage dealer and distraction. And then we're going to come down to the lower levels to take sort of a lower level spell just to free up some of our moves, or spell slots I should say. So we're taking Snaring Strike. Elementalist level 11, Setup Strike. Forcibly mark a target for setup, providing access to Warcaster Strike and cause an explosion that debuffs enemies. This will also infuse our weapon with force damage. And now we gain some immunity piercing, and this will really depend on what immunity you want to break through with. I would base this on whatever weapon or items you're using. So in my case, I'm going to use fire, but if you're using like the lightning jabber, which is another really good option for this build, then go for like lightning, that sort of thing. Now our final level, Elementalist level 12, brings us Synergistic Cataclysm, and you can see just how much damage this thing does. It's phenomenal. We gain more spells at this point, so the first one we're going to take is Flame Strike. This will deal fire and radiant damage. And we're also going to take Dethrone, 30 to 80 necrotic damage. It's fantastic. And then we get one more final feat, so for this one I would come all the way down here and I would take Savage Attacker. You could also take Alert if you want to boost your turn up the initiative order, but I think just ensuring we have the highest amount of DPS is phenomenal. Okay, we are going to go over the items now, and there's a few different options. I would, however, take the Mask of Soul Perception as your main helmet. This will mainly give you a +2 bonus to attack rolls and your initiative and perception checks. Because we're going with fire for this build, I would take the Cindermoth Cloak. So damage the wearer within 2 meters receives burning. You could also make this the Flesh Melter Cloak. You can make it the Cloak of Protection. You could go with the Cloak of Devoration. Any option really works. For boots, I would go with the Boots of Genial Striding. Let's get that movement unimpeded by difficult terrain. For armour, I would take the Armour of Agility. This will allow you to have exotic materials. Now bear in mind, we cannot use heavy armour, so it has to be medium. So any high AC medium armour will work. I just like the Armour of Agility. For gloves, now there are 2 options in my opinion. You could take the Helldust Gloves. This give you a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC, which is really good for things like Hold Person. It also gives our weapon attacks an additional 1 to 6 fire damage, hence why it ties into our theme and all our class resistance and immunity piercings. But if you did not want to take this, my other suggestion would be the Legacy of Masters. Gain a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls with weapons. Now when it comes to our other items, for a ring, I really like the Strange Conduit Ring. So if we're concentrating on a spell, we'll do an additional 1 to 4 psychic damage. The Shifting Corpus Ring for invisibility and blur. For an amulet, the Surge and Subjugation Amulet, so if we land a critical hit on a humanoid, we can paralyze them for 2 turns. Now for a shield, take any really high AC shield. I like Ketheric's Shield, just because we gain a +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. We also have advantage on dexterity saving throws. But if you want to take something with a higher AC, you're more than welcome to. And then for a weapon, I like the Flail of Ages because we have Elemental Age, meaning we can change the damage type of our weapon. However, if you fancy doing a different build like Lightning or something, then you could go with the Lightning Jabber. This will have Lightning, and obviously pick your resistances based on that. If you want something which does like Force damage or something, or Thunder I should say, you've got the Corpse Grinder. There's things like the Halberd of Vigilance with Force damage. Lots of good options, but I am going Sword and Board. So that is the build, let's go check it out. Okay, so we just left camp. The first thing we're going to do is bind our weapon. This means it now uses our intelligence. And then we're going to pick our elemental age. And again, we can pick whatever we want. So we can do acid, cold, or fire. So let's do fire damage. And now, if we come into here, you remember it had 1 to 6 fire damage originally. It now says 1 to 4, but we still gain the 1 to 6 from our gloves. Okay, so you'll see we're top of the turn order alongside our rogue. So let's get this going. Now you remember we can do warcasting. So let's do a firebolt to start with on this enemy. Just like that. This means we can then follow up with one of our warcaster strikes. So we'll come in here. And there you go, you see we did 47 damage with 1 hit. And we still have our bonus actions for these things. So let us do a Radiant Strike. And you'll see we're going to target 2 people. So we'll do it. I need to move slightly. Let's come to here. We'll do our Radiant Strike. We can't hit both, that's a shame. We'll wait to do our Radiant Strike then. Instead, let's do a Hellfire Orb, and we'll throw it down here on our Barbarian. In fact, no we won't, that'd be a waste. I'm going to wait until people are grouped together. That's going to make the most sense. So instead, we will waste our bonus action, and we'll do a Setup Strike instead. This will use 2 Elemental Sparks, but it's not too bad. And in fact, we will do it on... let's do this enemy. It's going to be disadvantaged, but hopefully. And there you go. Force damage, and we've caused these to be off balance. So you see our 12 temporary hit points have disappeared, and then they missed their attack. Okay, so we are now back to our turn, and let's start doing some stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to leave these enemies for a minute, and we're going to bring ourselves to here. Because I want to show off some of our awesome bonus actions. So we are going to throw down our Hellfire Orb, and we are going to take some friendly fire, but it is what it is. And there you go. Now you see, unfortunately, they didn't take much damage because they are rogues, but we did absolutely torch the spellcaster who was apparently here. We got burning on this one, and then this one can still take some damage. What it also means is that we still have our spells. So in this case, let's throw out a Synergetic Cataclysm. Now, as you can see, it's a huge AoE. And again, you're going to want to cast it on someone that isn't a rogue, because rogues take such little damage. But you saw loads of different damage types then. And because of that, obviously, we can then follow up with our Warcaster Strike, which sadly missed, because rogues are tricky little bastards. You'll see they just exploded with 25 damage. Okay, it's back to our turn, and we're going to try and take out this little dude at the end. So let's start with a Ray of Frost. There you go, we've got 10 damage on them. And we're going to follow up with our Warcaster Strike. So we can come in here. There you go, we see we actually did some pretty decent damage. We got cold and fire because of the infusion. And then we can follow up with a Venom Strike. And there you go, the enemy is now poisoned as well. Now the poison's already run out, which is a shame, but we got pretty decent AC that they can't hit us. Okay, and it's time to start finishing this fight. So let's start with a very simple firebolt on this enemy. There you go. We're going to follow up with our Warcaster Strike. And kill them off. And then it's time to get down from here. Now unfortunately, we broke the ladder, so we get to show off our movability with a lovely Misty Step. And let's hunt down the enemy over here. And go all the way across the battlefield. Okay, and then we've got other abilities we still have. So let's throw out a huge, when I can find it, Fireball. We're going to do this at 4th level. And there you go. What this then means, because obviously we have that fire resistance, we can run in. We can do our Warcaster Strike. Just like that. And if we really wanted to, we could finish it off with our Radiant Strike. You see 28 radiant damage. This is just such a high damage dealer melee frontliner. But of course, that isn't all. We have such good ranged capabilities. So let's go in here. And we're going to throw out a Guardian of Faith. And I'll show this off, get that summon going. Try and put it as close to them as possible. There you go. Now you see they are within the Guardian of Faith.
This is the easy part.
And And there you go, you'll see every time it hits within the radar, our little guardian will deal damage and then obviously take as much as it deals out. The Weaver Elementalist is a awesome pure spellcaster using elemental sparks. So we're going to go over it. Levels 1 to 12, combat tutorial, all the items you need. And Elementalist level 1, we gain 3 elemental spark charges. Now you can use these sparks to do like special effects or spells. They recharge on a long rest and overall they're just awesome. We also get Intelligence saving throw proficiency and Constitution saving throw proficiency, which is perfect. It means not only is our spellcasting modifier a saving throw proficiency, but also Constitution for helping with concentration spells. So we're going to pick the Elemental Weaver as our subclass. This brings Chaotic Orb Fire. Hurl a fiery energy that damages the target and creates a burning surface on impact. It's an awesome cantrip. We also gain a bunch of stuff here, which I actually picked myself. So for spells, I like taking Ray of Frost, Firebolt, and Shocking Grasp. 3 different damage types, and 1 melee, 2 ranged, so therefore something like that. I lost my trail of thought. 4 normal spells, we're going to take the Armour of Agathis, give you temporary hit points, and deal cold damage to people that hit you in melee. Magic Missile, a great spell from the start of the game to the end of the game. You can upcast it and it never misses. And Shield, a nice reactive spell, enough to boost your EC to protect you from damage from like Magic Missile or regular spells and attacks. Now when it comes to your elemental attunement, I'm just going to be going with Fire, but you should base this around whatever elemental you want. Reason being is, what this will do is spells and attacks you make ignore resistance to fire damage or whichever damage you choose. The other key thing is, when you deal fire damage, or cold, or whatever, with the spell you cannot roll a 1, and it will give you whichever chaotic orb for that type you've picked. That's the reason I had Fire Orb at the start. So, we're going to go with Fire, but when it comes to spells, obviously just pick stuff that changes depending on what you're trying to use. So when it comes to ability points, we're going to take 8 Strength, 14 Dex, 16 Constitution, 16 Intelligence, 10 Wisdom, and 10 Charisma. For your proficiencies, take whatever you feel like. Elementalist level 2 gives you another spark. We also gain Insightful Cantrips. So our cantrips now deal additional damage equal to our Intelligence modifier. We gain Potent Cantrips, so cantrips are harder to evade entirely. When a creature succeeds a saving throw against one, it still takes half damage. We also have Blinding Advantage, so this uses an Elemental Spark. Exploding Elemental Spark causing a blinding explosion that distracts the enemy and gives you advantage on spell attack rolls. It also gives creatures disadvantage on saving throws against your spells. We get one more cantrip at this point, so let's take Acid Splash. For a spell here, we are going to take Hellish Rebuke. Let's get that reactionary damage dealer, which is fire damage. Again, if you're doing a different damage type, pick it based on that. If you've gone for Ice, go for Ice Knife. If you've gone for Necrotic, Arms of Hadar. You know, Sickness, or Poison, sorry, I should say, Ray of Sickness. Pick the spell that really fits the build you're doing, but if you're sticking with Fire, then go with Hellish Rebuke. And then obviously for a second spell I'm going to go with Burning Hands, but again, same thing. If you're going for Necrotic, Inflict Wounds, and Arms of Hadar. Elementalist level 3 brings you Elemental Sparks, we gain another one. We also get Attuned Spellcasting. Your knowledge of spells has progressed, replacing insightful cantrips with attuned spellcasting. When one of your spells or cantrips deal elemental damage, add your spellcasting modifier to the damage dealt. We also gain Elemental Momentum. Whenever the wearer deals acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage with a spell cantrip, we gain momentum for 2 turns. Now again, for spells here, I'm going to be taking Scorching Ray. Again, pick it based on your build. And I'll be taking Misty Step just to help get out of danger or get to high spots, that sort of stuff. Elementalist level 4 gives you a new feat. We also gain a new spark and Restoring Sparks. Replenish an expending spell slot of any level by expending elemental spell charges in exchange. Usable once per long rest, kinda like sorcery points, but more limited. Now for a spell here, multiple other options still. I'm going to take Hold Person, it's a great way to end fights early. And I'm going to take Heat Metal just to tap into that fire theme again. And then for your ability score improvement, we're going to bump our intelligence up to 18. Elementalist level 5 brings you another elemental spark. Or sorry, 2 elemental sparks this time. You also gain Flickering Embers, so you regain all your elemental spark charges after a long or short rest. And we gain Glyph of Warding, which is one of my favourite spells in the entire game. Okay, when it comes to spell at this point, obviously I'm going to be taking Fireball, because I think Fireball's great. Again, if you're going Lightning Bolt, lightning arrow, those sort of things. I'm also going to take the Hunger of Adar because I just love this spell in total. 2 to d6 cold damage if they start their turn in the area, 2d6 acid damage if they end their turn in the area, they're blinded, and it's all classed as difficult terrain. And then we have an empowerment. So these empowerments will unlock infusion spells. So after casting the infusion, you're coating in something. So for example, acid is in the lingering acid. This one is flames, so causing your next fire strikes to be more potent as you go down the list. So I'm going to obviously be taking empowered flames. Elementalist level 6 brings you more elemental sparks. You also get Adroit Spellcaster. So cantrips targeting foes and allies can target an additional creature. The same card can be chosen twice. This effect can be used once per battle, which is awesome. We also get Cursed Mark. So mark an enemy using elemental sparks. They inflict it with a cursed debilitation for 3 turns and take 2 to 8 psychic damage. Now this gives you disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws. Gives the enemy disadvantage on attack rolls and saving throws and reduces their AC by 2 and take extra elemental damage. Now we gain more cantrips, and for this one, I think Pulling Web is a must-have for any of the sort of themes you're going with. I think it's awesome, and we'll pair this very nicely with Guidance. For a spell, I really like taking Spirit Guardians because I think it's a really nice protective spell, especially if enemies run at you, they will take damage for it. And I will also take Thunder Wave because I think this is just an incredible first level spell. Elementalist level 7 brings you Elemental Sparks, so we gain 1 more Spark Charge. We also get Empowered Evocation. So your grasp of Evocation magic has tightened, and you add your Intelligence modifier to damage rolls with any Evocation spells. We gain more spells at this point, so I'm going to take Wall of Fire, just because, obviously, it taps into that fire theme. But I also really like Guardian of Faith. Nice way of getting a summon on the battlefield. It doesn't move, sadly, but any enemies that run into it, if they end their turn within it, they will attack that enemy, and it will also take equal damage to what it deals out, which does mean it disappears quick, but it can be a really nice way of just holding enemies off, or getting out some extra little damage. Now when it comes to immunity piercing, obviously pick the one that you're building your theme around, so I'm going to go fire. Level 8 brings you more sparks, so this time you gain another one. We also get 4th level spells. The first one I'm going to go with is Fire Shield Chill, nice way of just like protecting yourself. I think it's really cool. I'm also going to take Haste, really nice to place on top of an ally, especially like a fighter, and let them deal out extra damage. Now we get Empowered Cantrips, and these are really fun. Multiple different types, and overall it's just incredible. So I am going to take Hellfire Orb as the first one. This is a bonus action, and 3 elemental sparks. Shoot a bright orb of hellfire from your fingertips that engulfs an area in flame. A pool of deadly hellfire is left in the aftermath of the explosion. There are so many good options here. Obviously, you could just go, if you're going ice, take all 3 of these. I kind of think it's worth splitting the damage a little bit though. So we're going to take Acid Shot as well, because I think this is just awesome. And we're going to go with Sonic Boom. Now for your ability score improvement, we're going to bump our intelligence to the max of 20. Elementalist level 9 gives you critical spellcasting. So you normally need to roll with a critical hit for a spell is reduced by 1, so it's now 19. We gain more empowered cantrips, so I would take Hellfire Blast. And then again, pick ones that really fit around your theme, or ones that you just think look cool. So for example, I'm going to take Erupting Bolt, because I think that's awesome. And I'm going to take Toxic Vapor. Now when it comes to spells here, the 2 I'm picking are Flame Strike, this is Radiant and Fire damage. And I'm going to be taking Cloud Kill, because I think Cloud Kill is awesome. Level 10 brings you more Elemental Sparks and Elemental Resonance. So when you deal damage with an elemental spell, you're stricken with Elemental Resonance. This increases your spell attack rolls and spell save DC by 3 for the duration of the effect. We gain more spells at this point, so I'm going to be coming down early levels, and I'll take something like Flaming Sphere, and probably something like Create or Destroy Water to tie in with the Thunder and Lightning. Elementalist level 11, Arcane Critical. So focus on the nuances of the Arcane, reducing the threshold needed to crit with spells by 5. This effect lasts for 3 turns and can be used once per long rest, and it costs 2 elemental sparks. We gain more spells at this point, so I'm going to be taking Disintegrate, because I think it's just insane, and we'll take Cone of Cold. And then finally, Elementalist level 12 gives you Cataclysm. This is a special level 6 damage type spell. As you can see, it does every damage type known to man. We get more spells as well at this point, so we're going to come down here, and first one I'm going to take is Wounding Ray. And we'll probably take something like Longstrider just to boost our companions. And then when it comes to your feat, obviously loads of good options. You could take Alert to boost yourself up the initiative. You could take something like a Dual Wielder. So you could use 2 staffs that allow you to have like innate spell power, so you can just have a free spell slot, something like that. Choices are really yours. I personally am probably going to take Alert just to start dealing out those elemental damages quicker. But if you want to do Dual Wielder and have 2 staffs, fully like logical and pretty good way to do it. Okay, when it comes to equipment, for a hat, I'm using the Hat of Fire Acuity. So it'll give an Arcane Acuity for 2 turns when we deal fire damage. Obviously, you might not want to use this if you're really focused on like Acid or Thunder. Pick the hat based on that. For a robe, I'm using the Cloak of the Weave. +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. We also can absorb elements once per short rest. For boots, the boots are genial striding, so unimpeded by difficult terrain. The Robe of the Weave, so +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls. Whenever we succeed a saving throw against a spell, we'll regain 1 to 6 hit points, and we gain a +2 to our armor class. We're going to further boost our armor class with the Braces of Defense, adding a +2 because we're not using armor or a shield. We're going to take the Crypt Lord ring because why not have a summon? The Shifting Corpus ring to give us invisibility and blur because why not? The Amulet of Greater Health, now you could put this on a fighter if you want to, but I like leaving it on a sorcerer or spellcaster. Essentially this just means it sets our Constitution to 23 and advantage on Constitution saving throws. Really though, you don't really need this for this build, so if you really wanted to, and upon reflection now, I would probably do this instead. We'd take the Spellcrux Amulet, get that spell slot restoration, and pump out those big damage dealers. And then there's Marker Share as a spell, or as a staff I should say. +1 bonus to spell save DC. We gain Arcane Battery, which means we can get a free spell slot, meaning we can pump out more of the Cataclysm spell. So that is the build, let's go check it out. Now I've just left camp, and what I would recommend is if you are going to do this build, would be to use a Scroll of Mage Armor on yourself. So we had 16 armor class, you now see we have 19. And I think that's just worth it just to protect yourself. What I'd also recommend doing is getting an Armor of Agathis, we'll say level 3. Get those 15 temporary hit points, and then cause extra damage to enemies if they hit you in melee range. Okay, so we are in combat, and you can see we're actually top of the turn order alongside the Rogue. So the first thing we're going to do, because we have Marker Share, is we're going to come in here, Arcane Battery, so now we get a free spell. And of course the first one we are going to do is our lovely Cataclysm, because why not? So if we come into here, Cataclysm, we are going to focus purely on this enemy here. And you can see all the different damage types we pumped out, and we didn't use any of our level 6 spell slots. What it also means is that as a bonus action, we have other things we can do. So, for example, we could do our Stonking Flames. This will use some of our sparks, and you see we just annihilated an enemy in 1 turn. Now, we're still in the combat, so let's do things like a blinding advantage. So we'll do it on the Barbarian here. There you go, and we now have the blinding advantage. However, because it is a main action, it means we've only got stuff like this, but we can follow up with something akin to one of our little bonus action elemental sparks. So this one, as you see, goes in a full line. So this is the kind of thing you want to put on enemies when you've got them all in a row. The other thing you can do is, for example, if we were to come down here, we got this enemy here, we could hit them with an Erupting Bolt or a Sonic Boom. So if we were to do this, you'll see we've managed to throw them off the edge, like I was saying, like you would with Thunderwave, and finish their fight very, very early. Okay, so how this build really works, in my opinion, is using cantrips and then your sparks, because the sparks will replenish. But let's come up here, and what we're going to do is we're going to come into our thing when I can find it, because I don't remember the name. Adroit Spellcasting. So cantrips targeting foes and allies can target an additional creature. So if we do this, and then we did, let's say, Firebolt, we can target both. just like that. And what that then means is that we have our bonus action, we can then follow up with something else, such as a Toxic Vapors. Now, unfortunately, oh, we can get both, there you go. And just like that, you see one's dead, and we took damage on the other. And again, like I said, this works so well when you purely focus on doing your spellcasting. Now, unfortunately, we're ensnared, which isn't great. So there's not much we can do here, so we'll have to do things like a Glyph of Warding. Now, I love the Glyph of Warding. If we put this, we'll do 4th level. Can we throw it here? We can. Instead of waiting for an enemy to walk into it, the enemy, it will trigger at the end of our turn because there is an enemy within it. Unfortunately, we have to do it on the rogue, and rogues are sneaky, but you get the gist of that. What it then does mean, though, is that we still have our bonus actions for other spells. So, for example, we could do our Erupting Bolt if we can see someone, which sadly I don't think we can. Let's try. Yeah, unfortunately it's all blocked, but like I said, it's all about your cantrips and then your sparks. So, we're going to come back up here and we'll do another cantrip on this enemy, and we'll do a Firebolt because that's our theme. And there you go, solid 15 damage, and then we can follow up with a Hellfire Orb. Just like that. Awesome way of just continuing out that damage. We now got Roiling Hellfire on them, so if we check that out in here. Flames from the Heart of Avernus engulf this entity, inflicting 3 to 36 fire damage per turn, which is a crazy amount. You see they just took 10 damage, which is a great amount. And then it's just time to start finishing the fight. You see we've only got 3 sparks left, but that's okay. Because what we should be able to do is, for example, do our Firebolt again, or like your Ray of Frost or whatever. And then ideally you should be in a situation where you can start targeting the next enemy. In fact, actually we can make our life easier by coming down here. So, as I said, we have other abilities. It's all just about your cantrips and stuff. So we'll just do a Ray of Frost cantrip, 25 damage, and then we'll follow up with, we'll do a Wildfire Blast. Or not, because it's not close enough. We will do the Acid Shot. And what you would have noticed is that you can only use each one once. So once it's done, it's not available. And that's mainly because of our Elemental Sparks, or the fact, as you can see, some of them do require a long rest, like the Toxic Vapors, like the Erupting Bolt. So you've got to really pick and choose. But, as you see, no Elemental Sparks, short rest, they all come back. The spell slots don't, but the elemental ones do. So, like I said, really the best way to play this, unless you really need to pump out the damage and do, you know, your Cataclysm, stuff like that, is to do your cantrip and then bonus action, follow up with your elemental sparks doing these spells, because these are so fun. So I really do hope you have enjoyed this build. If you have, let me know in the comments below and let me know what you would change. I think for like a pure damage dealer spellcaster, this one is by far the best. It is just crazy good. So I really do hope you've enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more if you want to see more guides for Baldur's Gate, guides for the Dragon Age the Belguard, Path of Exile 2, other games to come. Regardless, hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.